One or two preliminary items. We live streaming. Thank you. I'd remind everyone that this meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel and via the website, and that the Council is a data controller under the Data Protection Act. Those members of the public might see the television cameras up there to make sure that everything is being recorded. I'll just repeat, will members please make sure that when they're making a contribution, they speak directly into their microphones rather than to the room. And remember to make sure their microphone is off whilst they're not speaking and on when they are speaking. Mobile phones, if you've got a mobile phone of any sort, please make sure it's switched off during the course of the meeting so it doesn't interrupt the proceedings. Another small matter is that, as we all know, there's local council elections coming up, and it marks the end of a 4-year cycle for the local council. And as such, this is the last time I'll be chairing it after 12 years on the committee. And I'm not alone in standing down. There are also several far more experienced councillors than I who will be standing down from this committee. And of course, it'll be a great loss to the committee from their years of experience on planning matters. For a start, we have Councillor Peter Barnes, who's been a councillor for 48 years and twice has been mayor, sitting at the front there. 3 times mayor, that's absolutely right, you're 3 times mayor. Councillor John Parr over there, who's been a councillor for over 20 years. Councillor Chris Barnfather is absent today, but he's been a councillor for over 16 years. Councillor Meredith Lawrence there has been mayor twice. Councillor Barbara Miller has previously been a mayor. And also we have Councillor Rosa Keneally, who, like me, has never been a mayor. Now down to business. There are a couple of applications today. Sorry, Councillor Wilkinson.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. Given the speech you've just made, I think now is probably an appropriate moment to say a few words about yourself. I think I can speak on behalf of the whole committee when we say that we will miss your expertise and your stewardship of this committee. We'll certainly miss your forthright views on contemporary architecture, and I'm sure that you will spend your retirement wandering around the borough looking out for extravagant examples of fenestration. But seriously, I think we would all like to thank you for the expert way that you've chaired this committee, and you will be a great loss.
Thank you very much for saying that, Councillor Wilkinson. It's very kind of you, and thank you all. Couple of applications, both of them a bit, I wouldn't exactly say controversial, but different people have different opinions about them. So I'd be obliged if speakers, when they speak, would be concise and limit themselves to the prescribed 3 minutes and stick to just raising matters of material planning consideration. Okay? Now, because some of the people, we have members of the public here, and I'm very welcome to see members of the public taking an interest in planning committee meetings. As no doubt you've gathered, I'm Councillor John Truscott, and I'm Chair of Planning, for the moment anyway. On my left is Mike Avery, the Head of Development and Place, and to his left is Kevin Cartwright, the Principal Planning Officer. To my right is Sarah Fayaz, a solicitor from our Legal Services Department, and to her right is Ben Hopel, a Democratic Services Officer. Okay, now, first item on the agenda is apologies for absence and substitutions. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. All present and correct.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have Councillor Chris Barnfather's given apologies and Councillor Sam Smith is in his place. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next item on agenda is the Planning Committee protocol, which you'll find on pages 7 to 19 of your agenda papers. Third item is declarations of interest. I have no declarations to declare on behalf of the committee. Substantive items, item 5, Sarval Stoke Trent Stoke Bardolph has been withdrawn from the agenda. Right. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting carried away. We've got to approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 29th of March, which you'll find on pages 5 to 15 of your agenda papers. Would somebody like to move that as a correct record? Somebody like to second that? Thank you. All those in favour of it being a correct record, please show. Thank you very much. Now to get back to... yes, we've decided because of the public interest to move items 6 and 7 first. The first items on the agenda. So agenda item 6 you'll find on page 44 of your agenda papers, which is application number 2022/1316 land off Lime Lane, Arnold. The proposal is the use of the land for outdoor sports and recreation, site infrastructures for ancillary storage, office and refreshments, etc., etc. Now we have a speaker on that, who is Mr. Ed Hammond. And I'd like Mr. Hammond to come up and sit at the... Okay, if you press the button so that the light comes on, and you have 3 minutes, please, to present your case.
Dear Chair and Committee, we're a local farming family that has been farming in Arnold since 1901, starting out as tenants on the Sir Charles Seeley estate. Agriculture subsidisations are coming to an end, something I believe serves no purpose in today's farming climate. Diversification is essential for farm businesses to address this legacy. We are developing our farming system using regenerative methods, working with organisations like Severn Trent, Countryside Stewardship and Sustainable Farming Incentives. I also work voluntarily with the Scouts, creating woodland, Nottingham University, showing students how we farm, Nottingham Wildlife Trust, introducing ospreys into the county, Notts County Council, Trees for Climate, and the woodland in developing woodland, and Guardians of Sherwood developing a county wildlife corridor. As a business, we are committed to diversification as a way of providing a public good. I've been fortunate to become a custodian of this land for no other reason but for what my relatives had achieved. It shouldn't be just me who benefits from what I have had the privilege to grow up around. Working with operators such as Back to Basics and Into the Forest provides a means of opening up this private land to the public to enable recreation, exercise and fun. These are local businesses providing jobs not only on the site but in the wider area. The partnership with Back to Basics developed because of their ability to engage with children in a secure, structured way and teach them new skills. The work they do with organisations such as Catch 22 provide an opportunity for children from diverse backgrounds to escape to a safe environment and learn new things away from the traditional classroom setting. Suffering from severe dyslexia myself, I understand the benefits and importance of this concept. During COVID, the site was a valuable resource for the community who were able to come and be active outside. This site is in the Greenbelt, and as officers have pointed out, this is a place where we should be looking for opportunities to access and provide opportunities for outdoor sport and recreation. These uses could not meet the definition more clearly: fun, outdoor activities in a socially responsible way. The Maize links directly to renewable energy, providing crop at the end of the season, which is turned into electricity. The other activities, such as laser quest, axe throwing, archery and outdoor cinema, make the most of the natural environment, which is what attracts so many visitors to use them. The highest standard of woodland management is needed to ensure these activities can take place safely. Therefore, everything that happens works with the trees and woodland on the site. The popularity of this site is confirmed by the many visitors taking the time to write to the case officer to express their support. It is also confirmed by 2,000 plus people who have signed the petition set up to raise awareness on the current situation. I hope you are able to recognise this value to this site that this site offers the local community, economy and environment, and how important the businesses that are based there are. We do not want to lose it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to ask Kevin Cartwright, Principal Planning Officer, to put the case for Gedling Borough Council.
Thank you, Chairman. Just by way of a little bit of housekeeping and an update since the publication of the report. Just for information, there is an online petition in support of the proposal that has over 200 signatories, as the applicant has just stated. 2,000 signatories in support of Save the Outdoor Activity Site. There's a further petition of 131 that's been submitted by B2B Events. Again, 131 comments in support of the proposal. It's also my understanding that members have received correspondence from the owner, Mr. Hammond, directly, explaining the benefits of the proposal to the local area. And B2B have provided a timeline of the business activities on the site, with the business moving to Lime Lane, I think it was back in 2018. There's been a further letter of support from a member of the public stating that it is a popular attraction and that there has no impact on the surrounding area. There's also been a further letter of objection from a member of the public stating that it appears to be the fault of everyone but the applicant for the proposal and that the applicant should be aware of the need for planning permission. The applicant's agent has also provided some additional information listing the very special circumstances. They can be summarised as economic, that the proposal represent a diversification of the existing business, that the on-site business employs approximately 45 people per year, that there's an impact on local businesses such as taxes and suppliers. There's some social benefit in that the site is located in a designated area of the Greenbelt where opportunities for outdoor sport and recreation are supported in principle. Working with the community groups and charities, including Catch 22, a registered charity, Clubs and Scouts and Southall Rugby Club. In addition, B2B are an alternative provider of education. They work with Nottinghamshire County Council, local schools including the Carlton Academy, Wellow House and Southwark Primary School. It also encourages active lifestyles. During COVID, the site was a valuable resource as it was able to operate during lockdown, providing opportunities for outdoor recreation and exercise in the area. Environmental positives are that the proposal includes ecological measures and active woodland management. The Maze is an important part of the wider farm business, an opportunity for diversification to generate an income from farming, from the farming approach to crop rotation. Works also as part of the crop rotation programme, which is used to manage weed infestation, nutrient maximisation and pest control. The business also works closely with Severn Trent and environmental protection schemes, countryside stewardship and sustainable farming incentives. The land is privately owned with no public rights of way through the site. Therefore, the application presents the opportunity to open up the land for wider public use. The maize from the maize is cropped in autumn and taken as used for feedstock for Severn Trent green flour and in electricity generation at Netherfield. The applicant's agent has also just sought some clarification on points within the committee report, specifically paragraph 2.3. The clarification is that the shooting stands are not fixed to the ground, these are movable. At paragraph 2.4, the wooden shelter is actually constructed from twigs from the floor of the woods and is therefore not a permanent structure. The maze usually operates for around 65 days of the year, that's at paragraph 2.5. At 2.6, the outdoor cinema would run to 10:30 p.m. The stage is created from wooden pallets which are movable. At paragraph 2.8, other structures, the portaloos are subcontracted and brought in and off the site as required. Picnic benches are also portable and moved on a regular basis. Spectator stands are portable and move around the maze. At 6.7, justification for the track and parking. As confirmed, the track and parking areas are also very much used for the agricultural use as fields surrounding the site are actively farmed. That's just all the late items papers summarised, Chairman. Just moving on to the proposals now. That's the application site, marked in red, accessed off Lime Lane. So the proposal relates to the use of land for outdoor sports and recreation and associated structures, ancillary storage, track and car park. The site is accessed from Lime Lane and includes an area of car parking located roughly centrally within the site. So that's roughly the application site. There's Lime Lane, there's the access point, and then there's the sort of car parking area, as I say, roughly centrally within the site. In this instance, it is the associated development and the ancillary structures and other equipment that causes tension with the Greenbelt policy. The main issue for consideration is obviously the impact on openness of the Greenbelt. For clarification, outdoor sport and recreation use may be considered appropriate in the Greenbelt, provided it preserves openness. Therefore, the impact on openness in this instance is the ancillary structures, development and other equipment on the site. These include, but are not limited to, a number of storage containers, the sizeable area for car parking hard standing. Paragraph 6.6 sort of summarises the proposal, including the activities and other structures on the site. There's a layout plan, whether or not members can actually see that, but that sort of breaks down the various structures within the site, including the sort of archery stands, axe throwing, and the shelters area, the laser tag area. It is considered that the access track, car parking and associated ancillary structures impact openness. Whilst noting the very special circumstances set out in the report at 6.11 and the further clarity on the very special circumstances that are provided by the applicant's agent that I have verbally updated this evening, these are not considered to outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt. There are some details of the containers on site. That's the car parking area that sits alongside the access which goes further south onto Lime Lane. And then we've got some photographs showing the various pieces of equipment and associated structures that are involved with the use of the site. Also, in order to comply with the requirements of the Highway Authority, the access itself would need to be formalised and hard surfaced for the further 10 metres from Lime Lane. This would further impact on openness. As noted in the report, matters of highway safety, residential amenity, impact on trees and ecology are all considered to be acceptable, subject to appropriately worded conditions. As such, they are not forming part of the refusal. Just also got some slides just really showing how the access on the site has sort of evolved over a period of time. That's an aerial photograph from 2017 showing the access. And we've got some from 2019 and 2021, just showing, again, the access then the sort of car parking sort of being formalised. And then we've got 2021 again, and then its further extent, well, its fullest extent now back in March 22. So to conclude, although the use of the site for outdoor and sport and recreation activities may be regarded as appropriate in the Greenbelt, the built form associated with this use, the storage buildings, access track, car parking, results in built form in areas where there have previously been none and has a material impact on openness. The very special circumstances advanced by the applicant are not considered to outweigh this harm. Accordingly, the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, excuse me. Okay, thank you very much. Right then, here we have it. The proposal is the use of land for outdoor sports and recreation, site of structures for ancillary storage, office and refreshments, etc., which you will see on page 44 of your agenda papers. Would anybody like to move that proposal? And second? Okay. Are we going to open the debate? Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Mr. Hammond, for your presentations. To my mind, there's no doubt that the activities themselves that take place on this site are popular, they're beneficial, and they are appropriate for the green belt. I do, at the moment, have concerns about the ancillary structures in particular, and the hard standing for the car park, and the impact that they would have on the openness of the green belt. I'd find it very difficult at the moment to support the application as it stands. However, I do feel that there is a solution to be found here. I do think that work can be done to find a compromise solution that will work for both the green belt and the borough and our green belt policy, and for the applicants and the activities that take place on site. I would like to therefore move that this item is deferred to allow further negotiations between the planning department and the applicants to attempt to find a solution which works for everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Is there a seconder to that motion? Councillor Ellis, you second it. Okay. Anybody like to open the debate on that motion? Councillor Barnes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I think I personally can't see nothing against this. It's in the green belt. I know it's in the green belt, but it's quite. I mean, I only live at Daybuck, and we've never heard any noise from there.
Sorry, Councillor Barnes. Can you restrict yourself to the motion that's been put, which is a motion of deferment? We're not here at this moment to debate the substantive.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The substantive motion. Yes, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of the committee will know, I'm usually against greenbelt development, but I think if there's anywhere where you can do outdoor activity, it's here. And I think it's private land that doesn't allow public access at the moment, and the applicant is trying to open that up for public access. And I think that should be supported, and I support the motion to delay discussing the motion whilst the conversations around the car parking and the storage units go on. I think all the other work that's been done is great, and
but that's irrelevant to the motion we're debating. Councillor Ellis, did you mention the motion? Sorry,
Yep. I just think this is a very complicated proposal, and I think it's the enforcement report, which is later on the agenda. It really shows how complicated it all is, and I think that it's very much a balanced decision one way or another. So I think that there's, as Councillor Wilkinson said, there is scope for a sensible compromise which preserves the openness of the green belt but allows the applicants to provide these activities. And I think we need, with a bit of goodwill on both sides, to come to that conclusion, and I think a deferment gives some time for that to be achieved.
Okay, could I just say, for a deferral, there should be a clear and convincing reasons for doing so. So can you just state the clear and convincing reasons? This is, we've got to abide by the Constitution.
Well, as I've just said, I think there's scope for an agreement on this. If we refuse it, then it'll come back for a later stage, and gives a bit more time. Will allow us to deferment. A bit more time will allow the report to be sorted. The officers already pointed out there are differences of interpretation in the report, which need resolving before we can adequately address it.
So you would say that further information or investigation needs to be undertaken before a decision can be taken. Is that what you're suggesting?
I'm saying there's two grounds. One ground is that after deferment, will give us time to have a better report, which was clear about all the different items, and hopefully we'll be able to resolve the outstanding items of difference.
So Councillor Ellis, may I provide some assistance in terms of that reason for deferring the application? A member suggesting that the application should be deferred to enable further discussions to take place between the applicant and officers to address the issues in respect of openness upon the green belt.
So it would be deferred to the next planning committee, and we don't, at this moment in time, know precisely when that will be.
Would it necessarily have to be the next committee? If a future planning committee, subject to those discussions having taken place in, you know, if those discussions aren't complete by the time of the next planning committee, then it wouldn't seem sensible to rule things out of order on that basis. An appropriate future committee seems to be the sensible approach.
Sorry about this. We've been having a discussion this afternoon with legal about the Constitution because there's some points in it that are a bit nebulous, but it is agreed that it's best to say that whenever the next planning committee is at some point in the future, rather than set a definite date of which planning committee it's going to be. Okay? Right. So we have that move, sorry, Councillor Adams.
Sorry, I thought I'd give you a nice wave instead, Chair, instead of shouting out. Just wanted to know about as things stand right now, are they able to carry on with planting the maize and that sort of thing and carrying on in the process? How does their business operate during this time of deferment? Could we seek some confirmation on that?
Yeah, well, nothing's been decided. Yeah. Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you, Chair. I did second the motion, but that was only formally. And obviously, we've heard some new information in terms of regarding the structures on the site. It would have been useful if we'd had that before. And I will support the deferment, but I must say, once again, I'm disappointed that no planning application has been...
Can you speak into the microphone, please, Councillor?
Sorry. Well, how far do you want me to go back? What I'll say briefly is that I will support the motion, but I must say I'm again disappointed that here we have another application which is retrospective, and it's been going on for 5 years, which I find very disappointed. All this could have been sorted out if planning permission had been applied for in the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we've got the motion. We're going to have to vote on it. Is everybody content to vote on the motion to delay? Okay, all those in favour, please show. And against and abstentions, that has been passed. Now, what happens to the substantive? Okay, that's the enforcement has been withdrawn. So we go to the next item on the agenda. Yep. That's it. Thank you very much. We'll just wait until the hall has been cleared.
Chair, I tried to declare an interest in agenda item 4 at the beginning of the meeting, and will be leaving for consideration of the agenda item. Okay. Is there any business after item 4 now that the... No. I will... Oh, just that, yeah, I will come back in for the last few items.
Right, we move on to agenda item 4, and Councillor Paling has declared an interest in this, is leaving. Okay. If we go to page 22 on our agenda papers, you'll find application number 2021/0126, Beacon Baptist Church, Killissick Road, Arnold, where the proposal is a residential development outline to include demolition of existing site buildings. We don't have a speaker other than Kevin, who's going to present the case for the proposal.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal relates to the demolition of the existing building and residential development of the site. The application is in outline form with matters of layout and access for consideration. All other matters are reserved for subsequent approval. The submitted layout plan demonstrates how the site would be developed with 8 dwellings in the form of 3 pairs of semi-detached properties and 2 detached dwellings. There will be parking within each plot or in the form of a parking area to the rear. So they've got the 3 pairs of semi-detached properties, 2 detached, either within site parking or, as I say, there's a group of parking to the rear. There are no objections to the proposed development from the Highway Authority or Gedling Borough's Council Scientific Officer in relation to any contamination or any other matters on the site, subject to a number of conditions. These have been included in the recommendation of the report, paragraph 8. The site is located in a sustainable location. As such, the principle of residential development is acceptable, subject to planning conditions, which in this instance includes the loss of the community asset. In accordance with LPD 56 of the policy, of the LPD, protection of community facilities, this policy prevents the loss of a community facility unless alternative provision exists, alternative provision is provided as part of the scheme, alternative provision will be provided in an appropriate location, it has been demonstrated that it is no longer economically viable, feasible or practicable to retain the existing community use. In relation to the last criteria, it also needs to be demonstrated that if the use is no longer viable, feasible or practicable, preference should be given to a change of use or redevelopment to a community use ahead of any alternative uses, such as a residential use in this instance. Paragraph 6.3 and 6.11 look at the assessment of the proposal against that policy. As no alternative provision is proposed, the scheme must demonstrate that either alternative provision exists or the existing use is no longer viable, feasible or practicable. The building has water damage and contains asbestos. Remedial works to the building would be extensive and beyond the means of the current owners. Just got some photographs of the existing building there. Additionally, the church congregations were on a decline prior to its closure, and it is my understanding that they now take place at Baptist churches in Daybrook and Mapley as an alternative. The site has been marketed in relation to alternative uses, and whilst there was interest from a number of charities and community-based organisations, there were no concrete offers that met the requirements of the Charities Act that the trustees have to operate within, i.e. in the best interests of the charity. In 2021, the building was listed as a community asset, as an asset of community value. This triggered a requirement for the owner prior to disposing of the site to give community interest groups the opportunity to express an interest and prepare a bid for the asset. There was interest, but the interested parties were not in a position to purchase the site. As can be seen at paragraph 6.10 of the report, it is considered that alternative community use has been explored. In relation to alternative provision, I've received comments from the Head of Community and Leisure which provide an helpful overview of the facilities in the Killissick area, and I'd summarise his comments as: the location of the former Beacon Baptist Church means it's part of a small cluster of local shops and community facilities that serve the Killissick area. Killissick forms part of the borough's most deprived community according to the indices of multiple deprivation. The site, formerly known as the Beacon, is a local community hub providing services and activities for the local community run by the Daybrook Baptist Group. These include older people bowling groups, the Job Club, a regular after-school club, and meetings and events such as the Christmas Fair, Killissick Fun Day, and the Gedling Seniors and Youth Council intergenerational event. The Beacon ceased following closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Income was therefore lost, and the building repair costs could not be covered. Killissick Community Centre. The adjacent Killissick Community Centre, owned by Gedling Borough Council, is available to hire on weekday evenings and weekends, but not the full week. A targeted 0 to 4-year-old children's centre is in place during weekdays, and activities are available to the wider community. The other activities available to the wider community at Killissick Community Centre are the Knit and Natter Club, Baby Ballet, Killissick Autumn Club, Your Health, Your Way weight management sessions. A church group and the Nottinghamshire Christian Fellowship also meet at the centre. It's not certain how many local residents access these groups. Also as background, a recent health and wellbeing survey in 2022, which included comments from 20 stakeholders and 30 residents, specifically noted that the Beacon Baptist Church was popular but has now closed. Taking the above into account, it's considered that alternative community uses have been explored and that alternative provision does exist. As such, the proposal is considered to accord with LPD 56. As the application is in outline form, there are no detailed design of the dwellings at this stage, as such matters of overlooking and loss of privacy and overshadowing would fall to be assessed at the reserved matters stage. As such, the application is recommended for approval, with the recommendation being to grant outline permission, not full as stated at paragraph 8.0, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. So there we have it, the Beacon Baptist Church, Killissick Road, Arnold residential development. This is an outline planning development. Would somebody like to move that?
Chair.
Hello. Yes, Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Yes, I don't wish to move this application. I wish to move that we refuse planning permission.
Refuse planning commission. Just moving it doesn't mean you support it. It just opens the debate, and then after the debate, we can have a refusal of planning permission.
I'll come back later because I'm not inclined to even move it.
I'll move it.
Yeah, Simon, move it, I'll second it.
Moved.
It can be moved and seconded.
Yeah.
To move the
I know that's what I'm saying.
but you might need to
Yeah, sorry, just clarifying the fact that without debating it, we've got no idea why you were voting to refuse it. So anyway, where did I got to? Anybody want to open the debate? Councillor Smith.
I was just moving the motion as written in
Oh,
the
I thought
papers.
it had been moved and... Had it been moved and seconded?
I'll
Sarah?
second it, Chair. Just to be clear, that's all, it wasn't clear.
Right, Councillor Wheeler, would you like to open?
Thank you, Chair. The Beacon actually is a very, very valuable community hub, or was a very valuable community hub in Killiswick, in an area with a lot of needs. It would be travesty to see this turned into residential development. I'm all for the building being demolished, but what I'd like to see it demolished and replaced with is not housing, but a new community hub which serves the local community, which can serve the local community really, really well. There's a desperate need for a community hub in that area. We have various initiatives ongoing at the moment. We have NHS England working in that area with an initiative, bringing lots of community groups together. There is a lot of community interest in that building amongst different charities and different partners. It's not straightforward. It's not really straightforward just buying an asset. They have to find the funding to do that first. And I believe not enough time has been given for these local charities and partners to look at trying to find that funding. I do believe that the building does need to go, but it needs to be replaced with a new community asset that can serve the community with lots of different initiatives that were in there beforehand. It's really, really important. We have an area that does desperately need community partners working in a building, working together, delivering things that can actually improve the health and well-being and general outcomes, tackling unemployment, tackling issues around poverty, tackling issues around food poverty. All those sort of issues need to be tackled head on, but we can only do that if we have a fully functioning community hub that's tackling all those issues, working together, tackling, making things better. We need something that's going to tackle the issues around health and well-being. We need something that's going to ensure that issues around employment, issues around food poverty, issues around general poverty, ensuring that people have got access to services where they can go and get advice around debt advice, all those sort of things. A job club, we used to have a job club there, that's not there anymore. That building, or should I say that site, has so much potential for the local community. It would be travesty to see it disappear and turn into housing development. The other issue we have there already is we have Millbeck House right next door, and we have problems with parking already there. I have complaints from local residents about parking there all the time. It is a problem locally. So I just fear if we have residential development there, that's just going to exacerbate those issues. Where if we had a proper community hub that serves the local community, that works with different partners, the partners that are actually already there trying to work together, if they can find the funding to build a new asset there, then that would be a much better use for that space. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wheeler. Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. I'd fully support what Councillor Wheeler is saying. This is an area of considerable deprivation, and this building, or what could be placed on the site, a community hub, it remains an asset of considerable community value. I do accept that there is the community centre next door, but however, it is essentially a children's centre, and I wouldn't wish it to be anything else. But it does mean that it can't provide the services and resources that this area badly needs. I believe that community is working towards raising the funding to buy the asset, and they should be allowed sufficient time to bring that to fruition. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm deeply uncomfortable with the application as it stands for reasons that others have expressed. This is one of the most deprived communities in the borough, and it is vital that appropriate resources are provided. Many of us are very familiar with the Beacon site, you know, and have been to events there on a number of occasions, and we know what it has been and what it could become again. As I understand it, there is at least one group still actively trying to raise funds to buy the site, and I think we should give weight to the fact that this is a community asset, and for that reason, as it stands, I'm minded to vote against.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councillors Lawrence, David Ellis, Adams and Barnes who've indicated to speak. I'll take Councillor Lawrence first.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Unfortunately.
Thank you again. I've been a member of the Planning Committee for something like 28 years. Not continuously, but you can count on the fingers of one of my hands a number of times that I've voted against an officer's recommendation. But I am, like others, very uneasy about this one. One of the reasons that I supported that it came to committee from a meeting of the excuse me, planning delegation panel was because our own community department hadn't been consulted. And I heard what Mr. Cartwright said, and it doesn't look as if the communities department have said anything about the need of facilities in the area. They just said what it was and what's at the community centre. So, you know, I think Councillor Wheeler said it would be a travesty. I think it would be a tragedy if this planning application is allowed to go ahead. So I still think there is more to be done in supporting any community group who wishes to try and buy the thing. There are all sorts of funding applications which our communities department, if they haven't already, should be advising them on. So I'm going to vote against this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. Just to remind ourselves that paragraph 93 of the MPPF requires us to take account of the social, recreational and cultural facilities and to guard against the loss of valued facilities and services. As Councillor Lawrence said, the delegation panel was concerned at the loss of community use and wanted the committee to satisfy itself that all had been done. And we've heard from others about the nature of the Killisseek community, particularly disadvantaged area that the council is supporting. So I'd certainly be reluctant to lose the facility. So I'll be opposing this on the grounds that it would result in the loss of a community asset, and I'm not satisfied that the applicant has demonstrated that the cultural community, the community asset is not feasible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a question around material planning considerations in this application and where that stands as far as that's concerned. Obviously, as correctly quoted in the MPPF, it does state around the loss of community assets. I just wondered how that would tie with what's being said, specifically as there is a community centre located next door, and it does seem to say within the MPPF's content that it's if there's no community facility within a close proximity. And if that was the case with that community centre being next door, would that enable that MPPF rule, guide, whatever, to be taken forward, given that consideration of the location of another community facility?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Adams. So I think first and foremost, as Councillor Ellis has pointed out and yourself, that there is a relevant policy in the MPPF at paragraph 93, so that needs to be considered. There's also a policy in our local planning document, so policy LPD 56, protection of community facilities. So what I intend to do now is just run through paragraph LPD 56 for the benefit of members. So if this motion did fail and permission was refused, contrary to officer recommendation, my advice to members would be that we would be looking for reasons. We would need to demonstrate that the proposal is at variance with policy LPD 56. So what policy LPD 56 states is that planning permission for development proposals that would result in the loss of existing community facilities will not be granted unless, 1, alternative provision exists with sufficient capacity which can be reasonably accessed by walking, cycling or public transport and would not result in a significant increase in car journeys, or 2, alternative provision will be provided as part of the redevelopment of the site, or alternative provision will be provided in an appropriate location which can be reasonably accessed by walking, cycling or public transport and would not result in significant increase in car journeys, or 4, it has been satisfactorily demonstrated that it is no longer economically viable, feasible or practicable to retain the existing community use and its continued use has been fully explored. B, where it is demonstrated that an existing community use is not viable, feasible or practicable, preference will be given to the change of use or redevelopment for alternative community uses before other uses are considered. So that's the local kind of planning context, which is set out in LPD 56. But you're right, Councillor Adams, there is an existing community use which is on adjoining land, and that building, I understand, is owned by the Borough Council.
A follow-up, Councillor.
Thank you. Yeah. So does that? So thank you for that, Mr. Avery. So does that actually therefore remove that feasibility of it being a community asset? You threw me off my thinking now. Sorry, just 1 second. So yeah. So with the fact there's a community centre next door, does that mean that it wouldn't qualify under that section because of that community asset being next door, or can that be additional and therefore is it more, who determines that, whether would that come in the appeal process as to whether that is actually...
So I think first and foremost, we need to consider this application on the basis of its merits. That community centre on the adjoining land is not part of the application site. So that is separate. I think members would need to be content that the loss of this community asset there would be a conflict with policy LPD 56. So the MPPF and the local planning document that comprise, and the aligned core strategy, that comprises the development plan for the area. But there is a specific policy in our local planning document, so that would need to be addressed if members were to resolve to refuse permission contrary to officer recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Adams, is this, Councillor Wilkinson, do you want to, pertaining to that particular argument? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to come back on that argument. As I understand it, as from what it's just been read out by Mr. Avery, the particular clause that Councillor Adams is referring to about alternative provision, the key word there is that has the capacity to deal with the requirement. Now, as has already been stated by others, the Killiswick Community Centre is largely a children's centre now and does not have the capacity to deal with all the community needs that have been provided by the Beacon and would be required, and that's the key point.
Okay, thank you for that clarification, Councillor. Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think it's crazy to pull this down. I think we as a council should be making sure we've got facilities for the whole area that way. There's quite a lot of children and youngsters who, if they want to take any activity outside school time, have got to walk right down Arnold to Red Hill School or the Bollington Theatre or the Mellish Rugby Football Club to get any activity. There's nothing in that facility to give kids activities from sort of 10 to 17, 18. There's a playing field there. There's no facilities on the playing field. And if this was made into a proper youth community centre, that would get used by all the children and youngsters in that area. There's two schools in Nottingham, in Arnold. Back onto that, there's the Red Hill School, and you've got the Arnold Nottingham High School on Gedling Lane. And they're all merged from that area, and there's nothing there for them. And if we don't start looking after the youngsters, they'll finish up doing bugger all. And we've got to make sure that there's activities and venues where they can go and get involved in sport, because if they don't get involved in sport, they finish up smoking, whatever. So I think it's important that we look at this site very carefully. I think I was on the planning committee when this got planning permission, because the Baptist church in Arnold, that's what happened. The Baptist church in Arnold, where the co-op used to be, is a supermarket now, and they sold that and built this Baptist church there. And it's never been really a church, because a lot of the old people who have just passed the sell-by date, they've died and they've gone away. So there's no youngsters taking involved in them sort of communities as they used to be 20 years ago. So I think it's important that we look at this seriously and see if we can't make some contribution to it as a council, because I think it's important for the community to have a proper run community centre of some description there, which I think the children and youngsters in that area need. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Elwood.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanting a little bit of guidance from officers maybe on one or two issues. The site is registered as a community asset. Is there anything in planning policy about how long it's required to sort of try and find a use for a community asset? So there's some mention from other members about there is an ongoing investigation by some interested parties to buy the site. I just wonder whether there was a sort of time limit to that, because you could argue that maybe it could just go on forever and ever, couldn't it? But whether there is some guidance on that. Also, if we turn down this application tonight, is there any, presumably there is no planning restriction on the current owners of the sites to demolish the building? Presumably they would be within their rights to just flatten the building if they so minded. Thank you.
So picking up on the later points that you raised, so in terms of if planning permission were to be refused by the committee tonight, the owner of the building couldn't flatten it. That would need planning permission to demolish the building. So the building wouldn't be immediately lost if permission were to be refused. The owner of the site, so the applicant for planning permission, it would engage their right of appeal. So if members were unable to provide robust reasons for refusal, the council could be open to potentially costs if we couldn't defend our position at appeal. In relation to your question around marketing of the site, that's addressed in paras 6.7, 6.8 and 6.9. So that provides some of the background in terms of the building being listed as an asset of community value. And Mr. Cartwright, he went through those sections of the report earlier in terms of his presentation. In terms of just a general time period for the marketing of the site, There isn't a specific time period, but the time period in terms of the site being listed as an asset of community value pursuant to the Localism Act, that there is a specific time period there of 6 months. So that 6 months has now lapsed. But in terms of that general time period for the marketing of a site, we don't have that. So that is around a judgment. And members could take the judgment that the site hasn't been marketed for long enough.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wheeler, did you wish to speak again?
Thank you, Chair. Just to put some context onto this, it would be a tragedy for this to go to residential development, but it's important also to know that there are community groups that are looking at trying to get a new building there, a new community hub on site. It's also important to note that we do have a localities initiative ongoing at this moment in the Killiswick area with NHS England providing that funding, working with those community groups. And as part of that development moving forward, it is distinctly possible that all those groups working around that localities initiative could find the funding to provide a community asset on that site, which provides all the things such as a job club, a youth centre, a food hub, a warm hub, all the things that are missing in that local community could be provided in that base there. It was absolutely tragic when I found out that this building was being closed. I didn't know until quite late on during the COVID period that the Beacon Baptist was withdrawing from that building because there were an awful lot of local initiatives that happened in that building. We had health events, we had the Killiswick Fun Day had part of that building as well. So there's an awful lot of things that have been lost as a result of that building being closed down. So yes, as others have said, it would be tragic to lose that site to residential development because it would mean there would no longer be the opportunity for the community to provide a base within the centre of the community within Killiswick. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to contribute to the debate, the discussion? Any comments, questions, queries? Anything at all? Councillor Adams.
Small thing, just on the, on the basis that it falls in line with these policies as such then, how come the application was put forward for approval on the basis of these reasons that sit within a number of our policies internally as well? So how come the application was put forward for approval if it doesn't meet our community standards as part of that policy? Just as an understanding, it's purely a point of trying to make my own brain work the right way. Thank you.
Well, the officer recommendation to grant planning permission, the view of officers, is that it is in conformity with policy LPD 56 because the site has been marketed and for the reasons clearly set out in the report, there is compliance with LPD 56 and hence the application is recommended for approval. Members could take a different view. But if members do take a different view, they would need to give reasons as to why the policy requirements. So we need to determine this application on the basis of the policies in the development plan. And I've specifically highlighted policy LPD 56. So if this motion failed and members were minded to move a motion to refuse planning permission, then members would need to set out why there is not compliance with policy LPD 56 and further advice can be provided by officers.
Councillor Rachel Ellis, you want to come back?
Yes, thank you. It's all a matter of what is a reasonable judgment, and it's not to say that the recommendation of our officers are not reasonable. I think what we're looking at is the weight that we put on various criteria and aspects, and I think that's where we've parted company. In as much as we do not believe that there is an adequate resource within the next door community centre because, in effect, although that building is labelled a community centre, it is not. It is actually a children's centre and it's doing a very good job. But because it's in use as a children's centre, it really isn't able to provide the kind of services that Councillor Wheeler was mentioning. And in terms of, has there been sufficient time to give local groups the opportunity to get a plan together? Well, we've had the 6 months, that is true, but then the judgment is that adequate time? And again, it's a judgment, and in my judgment, no, they haven't, because they are community groups, they're all volunteers, and in my view, they should be offered further time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll ask again, has anybody got anything else to raise, or are you content that I move to the vote? Yep. So, application 2021/0126, location Beacon Baptist Church, Killissick Road, Arnold, on page 22, and the recommendation that you find on page 31 is to grant full planning permission subject to the conditions listed and for the reasons set out in the report. Can I see all those in favour of that recommendation, please? Don't all raise your hands at once. All those against? And abstentions? There's one abstention. Our application has not been approved. So, do we need to move a refusal?
Yes, but I would suggest an adjournment first so that officers can give some reasons for refusal.
Okay, legal advice is that we have a short adjournment while we discuss how to formulate this refusal, so it stands up to an inquiry. Okay. If we adjourn, everybody switch your microphone off. I don't know who's been listening, but no discussion amongst yourselves. Still working on it. Yep, okay. Right, is everybody still here?
Sorry. Councillor Paling still needs to be out of the room.
Sorry?
It's just Councillor Paling still needs to be out of
Yeah.
the room.
I said we hadn't finished. Yeah. No. We haven't finished with the proceedings.
No.
Right.
Okay, we have a wording.
Thank you, Chairman. So during the adjournment, what I've done with officers is reflected upon the earlier debate in this chamber. I've also had regard to LPD policy 56, and my advice to members, having heard the earlier debate, is that an appropriate reason for refusal, which members may wish to propose, is as follows. The proposal would fail to comply with Part A or B of the Local Planning Document 2018, Policy LPD 56, Protection of Community Facilities. The applicant has failed to demonstrate that there is sufficient alternative existing community facility provision with sufficient capacity available within the area, which can be reasonably accessed by walking, cycling or public transport, and which would not result in the need for significant increases in car journeys. No alternative provision will be provided as part of this development, and insufficient evidence has been submitted with the application to demonstrate that the retention of the existing community building and use is not economically viable, feasible or practicable.
Move it.
How does that sound? Do you want to take over as chair, Councillor Lawrence?
No thanks, I've seen how
Okay,
you do
well, pipe down then. Okay, you've heard the suggested wording from Mike, so we're up to somebody, when I request, would somebody like to move this? Thank
Move
you.
it.
And second? Yup. Would anybody like to open the debate on this motion? Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. I think we've debated the issues in terms of the main substantive application. I'm not sure that there's any need to, unless anybody's got anything burning that they wish to add to the debate.
You are now debating an entirely different motion to the original motion you have. You could hardly call it substantive.
Okay, substantive was perhaps the wrong word, but the original motion, we have discussed the issues and the reasons why we were inclined to refuse the permission. So, unless anybody's got anything to add to what's already been said, then I'm sure most of us would be happy to move to a vote.
Okay. We'll move straight to the vote if everyone's content with that. All those in favour, please show. And against and abstentions, that motion is carried. Thank you all very much. Right. We get back to the agenda. Page 75 for future planning applications.
Councillor Paling's just being
Oh, yeah, sorry, Councillor Pasling's got to return. You okay, Councillor Paling, to be finally back? For agenda item 8, future planning applications. Might interest anybody? Nope. Say again.
There's some land on Mansfield Road, the land of west of Mansfield Road, Red Hill. Is that back of the properties what we've just finished development? Where the metallic factory used to be? Back of there, is it?
Yeah, it's the land at the back of the
I
former metallic factory.
thought it was, but I weren't quite sure. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, who keeps switching my microphone off? I see coming up is land next to Pepper Potts, Natalie Plains, very sort of, doesn't sound anything sensational, but it's erection of 8 detached dwellings and 3 apartment buildings comprising 32 units. In my opinion, those 32 apartment buildings on that site are absolutely appalling, but unfortunately, I will... Pardon? I would most definitely vote against that, given the chance. It's you know, it's a marquee site, right as you turn into Colliery Way. There should be something really outstanding there, not as boring and mundane as the ones proposed. But anyway, it's nothing to do with me anymore. Delegation panel action sheets, page 77 to 94. Anybody's got any questions about those? Nothing. Item 10 is any other items which I consider urgent. It's not particularly urgent, but I'd just like to thank Mike and Kevin and Nigel and Sarah Fiers and Sarah Pregon and Ben Hopewell, and of course Kate Goodall, who is now back here from Democratic Services, and I must really compliment Kate on the way that the amount of backup that she's given me over the years in sorting things out before they become trouble, and or everybody in planning department who I don't get to. I mean, before the pandemic, you know, I was always popping into planning department and talking to the planning officers there. But since then, you know, sort of Gedling Borough, the civic centre seems to be hollowed out, and there's nobody here. And you know, so I haven't really been going to see any of the planning officers. And I also want to say the compliment planning policy department. And legal department, who's always Sarah Fiers and Sarah Pregon and all the other ones who went before, and everyone in Democratic Services. So I'd just like to thank them for all the support I've had over the last 12 years. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
Councillor Barnes.
Can I just say, this is this is my last meeting, and I've been on the planning committee 51 years. So I thank all the officers who have been involved over the planning for the last 50 years, and I've seen some nice things developed in the borough, so I'm quite pleased what we've done over the 50 years in development. Most I'm happy with, but one or two which is a bit dodgy, but generally speaking, I think we've done a very good job of the planning committee. I'm going back to John Parry's time and Ron Smith and lots of people. So thank you very much for all the support I've had for the last 50 years. Thank you.
Yeah, it is actually, I'll come back on that. It is quite good because you know, sort of some of these developments that have come through in the last 12 years of my knowledge, you know, things like Teal Close and Chase Farm, and land north of, what's it? Well, nothing seems to have come of Top Wickay, does it? But you know, we're not just building houses. We're not just building housing estates. We're building communities. You know, something really worthwhile. And of course, we've got to pat ourselves on the back for the Gedling Access Road and for Gedling Country Park and things like that, which all been done in the last 12 years. And you know, you can look back and think, well, we made a difference, all of us.